Hi everyone, it's Master Ben and welcome back to another Star Citizen video. Now today I'd like to talk about one of the most anticipated events in 3.23 and that is Xenothreat. The huge server-wide event where the UE calls in all of its valiant troops and to help get rid of the Ninetales and send them packing back to Pyro. But it's fair to say there are a few things in this event which are better than other areas. So join me today as we look at the good, the bad and the ugly of Xenothreat in 3.23. Of course, if you enjoy this content, I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe or maybe leave a comment or a like. It does really help the channel grow. So let's begin with the good. And there's a lot of really good things about Xenothreat in 3.23. I've taken some of my own feedback, I've spoken to a few other people who I played with in the same session and in other sessions, so hopefully today I can give you a really rounded opinion of what's working really well, what's not working well. And with that, why don't we kick things off with what's good about Xenothreat in 3.23. And to begin with, I would like to talk about the skybox. So the skybox refers to the outer edges of the box you are effectively playing in. So this would be all the stars in the sky. And I have to say, this is the best looking location in Stanton right now. Being near the Pyro jump point gives you these amazing blue and orange clouds which just seem to go on forever. They are absolutely stunning, and especially when you jump to the wreck site and you see these lightning blue flashes going through the sky, you absolutely cannot go wrong with this location. If this is any indication of what Pyro is going to look like, I cannot wait to explore these locations. Every time I played Xenothreat, it really brought a great sense of being by looking into these clouds. They always looked slightly different, it wasn't a continuous repeating pattern. 10 out of 10 to CIG, this looks absolutely amazing. And with that, I'd also like to talk about the wreck site. So I strongly suspect the wreck site is procedurally generated with a few tweaks of manual input. Once you jump there, you'll notice quite quickly there is an incredible central asteroid which has this wonderful donut effect, so you could almost fly straight through it. This mixed with the skybox I think makes probably one of the most photogenic parts of Stanton that I've ever seen, so you're probably going to see a lot of footage from this area until it gets hidden away behind a 600-kilometer flight again. And with that, let's talk about the concept overall of Xenothreat. So for those of you who don't know, Xenothreat, as I alluded to in the intro, is a combination of logistics and PvE gameplay with a bit of PvP, but I'll come back to that later. In the early stages, you have to pick up resources from wreck sites, which means going on foot into Starfarers. This can sometimes lead to some PvE gameplay against Ninetales employees. It's a bit patchy, but overall it's really good fun. From there, you have to pick up from a variety of resources and bring them back to the Javelin. Each resource has a different function that you have to be aware of. Some have a timer, some can't go through quantum, and others are just very large boxes which are a little bit more difficult to handle. So if you're looking for what kind of ship to use, something along the C1 size, MSR, Freelancer, all of these are a really good idea. I, however, decided to bring along a whole C, just for a bit of a laugh. And actually, it kind of worked, not really. I'd strongly never, ever recommend it because selling the goods at the other end is a nightmare. But there you go. Once the logistics side is done, the Javelin will then deploy and head to the wreck site and help you fight down the Ninetales gang with their Idris. And oh my gosh, has the Idris been buffed this patch. It is a nightmare to kill. The thing is so strong, so you're definitely in this for the long run. Another great thing that I'm sure you can work out is this is not just a PvE combat event. There is actually so much more to do, especially in the logistics area. You have ship combat, ground combat, and logistics. It is incredibly fun. I predominantly played the PvE ship side. Grabbing a cargo ship and actually going down to pick up resources is incredibly fun because the game is so beautiful in its current area. If you went to the old Jericho station, it is just a normal, regular area. There's nothing special about it, but here it is beautiful. And so far, another great thing about this event I found is the teamwork is really good. I actually had the pleasure of meeting a lot of new people on this event, even forming parties with some of them or adding to our existing party. People were really excited to work together and get the events done. Now, I have heard reports of some people, being a bit silly or doing full-on PvP to fight the good guys, fight the UEE, but to be honest, I think that's fine. It adds a bit more to the event, adds a bit more variety. I understand some people were annoyed because it sort of takes away from the PvE aspect, but I think we just need to accept that this is the case, and actually it probably will make the event better over the long term, providing they are not ganking, ramming, or anything that is actually malicious. So I alluded to the logistics boxes earlier, but one thing CIG have done really well is when you pick up a box with a special trait, you will actually get a radio message telling you exactly what that box is. For example, if you pick up a box that you can't quantum with, you'll get a radio message warning you that the goods are unstable and that you should not quantum with them. They don't say don't quantum with them, so I mean give it a try, but I think you're going to detonate. But I think my all-time favourite thing so far about Xenothreat is the never-ending combat. Now I'm going to come back to this later in one of the cons and I'll explain why a bit more there, but when it works, this is an absolutely joyous event for being able to just sit down for about an hour or 2 hours, or 12 in my case, and just slamming through unlimited waves of enemies. And because this event is so long, it actually gives you a great opportunity to try so many different ships out. The great news is you are next to Pyro Jump Point Station, which is by far, if not the best station in the verse for making your home base during this event. In here, you can set your spawn in a medical bay, call all your ships, and there's tons of pads, so you're never going to have to wait to claim a ship back. You can buy armor and you can buy guns, so there's really no limitation to playing from here. And finally, one lovely thing about this event is just the ability to see so many big ships from the UAE. It's very rare that you actually get to see the Javelin or the Idris being played, so it's really lovely until we get them in game, just to see them every now and again. Alright, so I've told you all the good things about Xenothreat in my eyes, and if I've missed anything, please feel free to let me know in the comments, because it is actually an incredible event when it works. When we talk about the bad and the ugly of Xenothreat, I've broken this down to two categories for the things that get annoying but actually can be worked around, and the ugly, which is game-breaking bugs, which probably make this one of the worst experiences I've had in this game for quite a while. So to begin with the bad, as I said, these are things that are annoying but actually don't end the game. It's not going to waste tons of time, so it's not too bad. I'd like to start with the Pyro Jump Point Station. And the first issue, which is quite common in the verse but seems to be incredibly prevalent here during the event, is a very, very dodgy landing and repair station. Basically, if you get shot to pieces and manage to get your way back to the station, and for some reason you just can't repair. Now this sometimes means you have to park your ship, store it, retrieve it, repair it, or in other cases you have to slam it into a wall and then go back and claim it again. Neither of which are game breaking, but I would just say they are super frustrating and really slow down the experience. So while we're talking about the station, the most annoying part about it is the fact it will attack you for absolutely no reason. So a great example of this is if you are playing a Retaliator. If you target the enemy Idris and fire your torpedoes at it, you will 100% go red, and you'll go red for a while. So when you jump back to the station's going to launch 50 missiles at you, every cannon under the sun, and they will absolutely go to town on trying to kill you. And it's the exact same if you are just shooting the Idris or shooting the enemies. If you at any point have triggered your missiles, as soon as you get back to the station, they will absolutely try and kill you. Now the good news is, the FPS sometimes is so low that the station will very much struggle to kill you. However, I'm going to come onto this a bit later. So let's talk about this amazing Javelin, the thing we're spending hours, and I do mean hours, getting all the resources to repair. The ship is missing most of its guns. It's got the 2 turrets with 4 size 8 guns on each, but all the other guns are absolutely null and void from this ship. But that doesn't really matter, because the Javelin won't help you. I've got some B-roll playing, so hopefully I've linked it up so you can see it at the same time. But the Javelin will undock for phase 2 of the mission, jump over to the extraction site, and then sit there. It won't shoot, it won't help you, it will just sit there. And if you target the Javelin, you can even see all of its guns are offline. It just has not been set up to work. I probably got to this phase about 5 times and I never saw the Javelin help once. Now this wouldn't be too bad if it wasn't for the next bug, which is the fact that targeting the Idris gives you absolutely zero information on whether it is taking damage or not, which I will come back to in the ugly section because this is a huge issue. But for right now, what this basically means is you have no idea if you are dealing damage or not, or how close you're getting to killing it. Because this ship can take easily 30 minutes to kill with non-stop firing, it can be quite disconcerting sometimes continually shooting it and having zero idea if you're actually doing damage to it. I'm going to come back to this in the ugly section and hopefully you'll understand why then. Speaking of the background tech, I'd also like to mention the actual missions for Xenothreat. And sometimes, especially in phase 2, there are some incredibly annoying bugs. So the light bugs, which I'll talk about in the bad section, mainly refer to missions just not updating. The most prevalent of these is reports for duty, which basically tells you in phase 2 to jump to the wreck site. If you accept the mission before you're in the wreck site, report for duty will never update to realise you are at the wreck site. It's a really easy solution, you just need to abandon the mission and then retake it, but until you realise this, all the work you do will be absolutely meaningless for the actual end goal. And finally, one of my favourite things about this event is also one of my least favourite things about this event, and that comes down to the never-ending swarms of enemies. So when there's an actual defined goal, I really like this. For example, if we're extracting resources from a starfarer and we're having to defend that starfarer, then this can be really fun. But in the final phase of the mission, when you're spending 30-40 minutes trying to kill the Idris, these never-ending other ships merely slow down the event. And suddenly you realise it actually makes zero sense to spend any time trying to kill a Gladius, a Sabre, which are trying to swing around and attack you, because in reality, the second you kill one, 2 more are going to spawn and start attacking you. While it's a nice idea to have this never-ending combat, all it does is tank the server FPS and actually just make the experience quite unpleasant. And this really goes to show how bad or fragile the UI is in Star Citizen for any kind of swarm fighting. Every missile will display on your HUD, and sometimes when they miss, they're just going to swing around and stay on that HUD forever. Every fighter will remain on there. Every soft death fighter will remain on there. This is why when you see a soft death ship, you should fully kill it just to get it off your HUD. It is very tricky to continually use the UI without feeling overwhelmed, especially in the final stages when you see these never-ending fights going on. Okay, so I've spoken about what's bad. Let's move on to what's ugly. Now these are things that really make it difficult to love Xenothreat. Now for those of you who don't know, right now with the Overdrive initiative, if you complete Xenothreat mission 1 and 2, so 1 being logistics, 2 being kill the Idris, you'll receive a free set of Ninetales armor. It's a pretty cool reward for playing the game. I think it's quite a nice idea, so I thought, hey, it's the weekend, let's get some mates online and we'll do this together. What came next was 12 non-consecutive hours of attempting to do this mission. Now to be clear, I have spoken to people who have done this on the first try, and I think I would have done this on the first try if it wasn't for all of the bugs. Because in reality, there was a 0% chance from the second we started on the first server, and the second server, and the third server, that it was physically impossible to complete this mission. So first of all, the low FPS that this event brings. So the low FPS is derived from a variety of bugs, and just to be clear, I'm running a 14900K, 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM, and an RTX 3070. There is no way you can say that this is just a bad computer where other people should just stop complaining. I think this is actually a really bad issue that they need to optimize as soon as possible. When missiles start to be fired, the game absolutely tanks in FPS, and because the enemies fire so many missiles, it's almost unplayable. As you'll probably see from the footage running in the background, I have over an hour of recordings of me just fighting in the F8 against never-ending enemies, which was really good fun. But oh my god, for every hour you can see, there's at least 2 hours of about 5 to 8 FPS of just trying to attack. Most of the time I would just stop recording at that point in an attempt to get it done, but honestly even that didn't really help. So what was the reason it took so long to complete Xenothreat for me? Most of them derive from mission 2, and it's basically all to do with the Idris. The first of which is the fact that sometimes the Idris was invincible. And no, it wasn't the fact we weren't trying hard enough or anything like that. The Idris was absolutely invincible. For context, we fired a minimum of 30 size 9 torpedoes, constant infernos swarming it, and lonely old me in an F8 absolutely attacking it. In 90 minutes of fighting, we were never informed once that the shields were down, or did it receive any visual damage to the bodywork. There was at least 2 additional retaliators attacking the ship on top of what I just told you. To say what we were doing was overkill and still wasn't enough is an understatement. There was absolutely no way the Idris was functioning, and even if it was and we didn't know about it, because we can't target the Idris to get information on the HUD, it is impossible to know if you are actually doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Sometimes the Idris is invincible, not ideal. Well, sometimes it doesn't even spawn. After completing mission 2, an Idris will sometimes spawn before the NPCs actually load into the Idris to attack it and trigger the mission. During this time, if anyone touches the ship or gets into it, the mission instantly breaks and episode 2 will never ever spawn. So after spending about 2 hours on one server running logistics, an Idris spawned, someone got into it immediately, and that was the end of that. Episode 2 never spawned, so that was really great. So there you go folks, these are the good, the bad and the ugly parts of Xenothreat. There is one more I'd like to touch on, but I don't think it's anything game breaking. It didn't ruin the event, but it certainly could have been better, and that is the storyline. There is none. Now I don't really know what CIG could do to make this feel better, and it could have been the fact that I had to do this event so many times just to finish it once. To be clear, in 12 hours of gameplay I finished this mission once. I just felt disconnected from the game. There was zero reason to me for actually helping the UEE complete this mission. There was no story, there was no risk, there was no what happens if we don't complete this. It would have been really cool if CIG could track how many times mission 2 was completed and then say, well, if we don't hit X number, then maybe this could trigger a different event in game, just to make a reason for actually contributing to the server-wide population for completing a goal. Right now, these events feel disconnected from the game. So to summarize folks, would I play Xenothreat in 3.23? It's really tricky. Having spoken to quite a few people, I haven't found many who are enjoying this current patch, and it always comes back to the exact same line. There is absolutely nothing to do this patch. And I suppose that's been true in the past, but for some reason it seems to have hit people very hard this patch. The way we summarized it in our group was this: Xenothreat is not actually that fun right now, but it is an excuse to get on the game with your friends and meet up and do something in the verse. Now I don't know what's happened to this since 3.17. In 3.17, Xenothreat was the absolute best thing I have ever done ever in this game. It was incredible. The never-ending combat. Watching an Idris and a Javelin duel it out over distance was unbelievable. But this time, I just don't feel that. Most of the time I'd spend 3 hours swarm fighting, just to then have to fight an Idris with zero information on whether it's taking damage or not, and then it's over. That's it. Thanks for coming. I was left feeling empty, and I really think it's something that needs to be addressed, but I don't know what the solution is, and I don't like criticizing part of the game if I can't come up with my own solution. To finish off, I'd say this: Xenothreat this patch is more of a concern to me than I actually thought it would be. 3.23.1 was delayed to get this event working. There were never-ending issues on multiple servers, which actually meant this went from a fun evening activity to absolute pain. Now once again, some people flew through this event, but even those people haven't really logged back on to do it again. Yeah, I really don't know. Personally, I played it once through and I'm done with it now. I'm not really going to go play it again. But saying that, I don't know what else I'm going to do in the verse right now. It doesn't feel like there's really anything going on. So in that case, I suppose I'll see you all at Jumptown. I hope you've really enjoyed this video guys. If you have, I'd be really grateful if you could do the typical YouTube things of like, commenting, subscribing, all that cool jazz. I have a Discord server you may want to check out, which is in the description, and if you're interested in joining an org, I've also got that linked below. But until then, I'll see you all next time.